Stop scrolling. You cannot skip this story because what I went through, it will shock you, especially if you think family always has your back. Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Bennett, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. This is a space where I share real-life experiences that teach us about resilience, boundaries, and survival in the face of betrayal. By the way, this is a brand new channel, and your support means the world to me. Please hit subscribe, give this video a like, and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. And when you subscribe, drop a comment telling me what number you are. I'd love to watch this community grow, one person at a time. Now, let me tell you what happened. I'm 9 months pregnant, carrying my second child, and what I recently discovered about my own family left me completely shaken. It's been 18 hours since I processed it, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how my mother and sister could even think about ambushing me like this, while I'm literally about to give birth. Let me rewind a little. 5 years ago, my mom, Linda, and my sister, Emma, had a major falling out. I told both of them I wanted to stay neutral. Emma respected my choice. Mom did not. 2 years later, when my husband, Daniel, and I got engaged, my mother gave me an ultimatum. Either I uninvite Emma from the wedding, or she wouldn't attend. I made it crystal clear. I wasn't disinviting anyone. So just like that, she severed all contact. That was September 2022. A month later, I got pregnant. I emailed my mother to get her address so I could send her the pregnancy announcement. No response. When my daughter was born, still nothing. No texts, no congratulations. Nothing for the first 2 years of her life. The only thing I found out during that time was even more disturbing. My mother had been praying for Daniel to die, or divorce me. Why? Because in her eyes, he wasn't the man God had for me. Fast forward to now. I was supposed to spend a weekend with Daniel and my daughter at my grandmother's house before the baby comes. You know, one last little family getaway before things get hectic. But I ended up canceling because I thought I was going into labor. False alarm. Last night, I called my grandmother to apologize for canceling and to set up future plans. While we were on the phone, I overheard her say, "You heading out? See you next week." I asked who she was talking to. She said, "Oh, that's your mom. She comes by Sundays." Immediately, my stomach dropped. I realized that if we hadn't canceled, my mother could have shown up while we were there. No warning, no heads up, just an emotional ambush. I called back to clarify. Was she planning to be there while we were visiting? And here's the kicker. She knew we'd be there. My grandmother had told her, but never told me. Not once did she even hint that maybe it would be better for my mother to skip the visit. Instead, she called me afterward and said things like, "Can't you two just fix this rift? And your mom needs you in her life." I sat there in disbelief. My mom hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, by her own choice. And now these two women were plotting an emotional encounter behind my back, while I'm 9 months pregnant, in hopes of getting a favorable outcome. I knew right then. I cannot trust them. Not now, not ever. I hung up, and Daniel looked at me with that same stunned expression I was feeling. The audacity, the sheer manipulation, it was unreal. I spent hours thinking about it that night, wondering what would have happened if we hadn't canceled. Would my mother have cornered me in front of my daughter? Would she have guilted me into forgiving her on the spot? I couldn't risk it, not with the baby coming any day now. But here's the worst part. I still love my daughter, and I still want her to have a relationship with her grandmother, but not at the expense of my mental health. I realized that moving forward, I had to set boundaries so firm they couldn't be crossed. I thought about all the years I had tried to stay neutral, tried to mediate, tried to make everyone happy. And what did it get me? A mother who prayed for my husband to fail, a sister who might get caught in the middle, and now, the potential for a dramatic ambush in my most vulnerable state. I know what some people might think. Just let them talk. It's family, but no, not this time. Not while I'm carrying life inside me. I had to protect myself. And I realized that protecting myself means saying no, even to people you once loved unconditionally. I called Daniel and my daughter into the living room. I wanted them to see my decision. I wanted them to know we are a team. No one gets to manipulate us. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a tiny spark of relief. That's when I knew. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about survival, courage, and protecting your family, even when it means standing up to the ones who should love you most. After that phone call, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head: the secrecy, the manipulation, the sheer audacity of my mother and sister plotting behind my back. 9 months pregnant, exhausted, and they still thought they could corner me emotionally. I decided to call my grandmother again. I needed answers. Calmly, I asked, "Grandma, why didn't you tell me my mom was planning to come by?" Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. I thought it might be better if she came. Maybe you two could reconcile. I froze. Reconcile? After 3 years of silence, after everything she'd done, reconcile in what world sounded like a good idea while I'm about to give birth? I realized something in that moment. My family had zero regard for my feelings, my pregnancy, or my mental health. All they cared about was getting what they wanted, some emotional payoff, some victory over me. I hung up slowly, heart racing. I felt anger, yes, but also a strange clarity. I had spent too many years tiptoeing around their drama, letting them control how I felt, how I reacted. Not anymore. The next morning, I started planning. I couldn't predict exactly what would happen if they tried to corner me again, but I could control my boundaries. I called Daniel and we made a new plan. No visits until after the baby. And even then, if my mother tried anything manipulative, we would leave immediately. Daniel was supportive, as always. He held my hand, looked into my eyes, and said, "Sophia, you've carried this family's chaos long enough. Now it's your turn to protect yourself." And I realized that he was right. For once, it wasn't about keeping peace for anyone else. It was about keeping myself and my children safe. But here's the thing. I wasn't going to let this be just about defense. I wanted control. Not revenge exactly, just boundaries so strong that no one could cross them again. I started writing down everything. Past incidents, hurtful messages, times my mother or sister had tried to manipulate me. Seeing it all on paper made me feel empowered. I also decided to be honest with my daughter, at least in a gentle, age-appropriate way. "Mommy has to make sure everyone treats us kindly," I explained softly, holding her tiny hand. She nodded, trusting me like only a child can. And that gave me more strength than anything else, protecting her innocence, even from my own family's chaos. That night, I lay in bed, my hand on my stomach, thinking about the future. This wasn't just about this weekend, or the next, or even the next year. This was about all the days ahead, teaching my children that love doesn't mean letting people hurt you, and that sometimes the hardest battles are against the ones who should love you most. I kept thinking about the what-ifs. What if they had shown up last weekend? What if my water had broken while they were there? The thought made my chest tighten. But instead of panic, it fueled determination. I knew exactly what I had to do. I began setting up small tests to see how far they would go. I called my mother casually, asking when she might want to visit, keeping my tone neutral. She didn't know that Daniel and I had already made plans to never be alone with her until after the baby arrived. Her excitement in the voicemail told me everything. She was still trying to manipulate the timeline to her favor. At that moment, I realized something vital. I had spent too long being polite, being neutral, being the good daughter and good sister. But life had shown me that politeness didn't protect me. Neutrality didn't protect me. Only boundaries protected me. By the time the next weekend rolled around, I had built a careful plan. If my mother tried to visit, Daniel and I would leave immediately. I would not engage. And if she tried to guilt me, I would calmly remind her, I am 9 months pregnant. I am protecting my family. That is non-negotiable. I also had a secret weapon, my calm. Every time I thought about the confrontation that could happen, I reminded myself, anger doesn't win battles. Strategy does, and I was done being anyone's pawn. That night, as I rested, I finally felt a flicker of peace. Not because the threat was gone, it wasn't, but because I had taken control over what I could control. I had a plan. Daniel had my back. My daughter had my protection. And most importantly, I had my voice, my power, and my choice. I fell asleep holding my belly, whispering quietly, "We will get through this, and we will do it on our terms." Because here's the truth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can be the ones who hurt you the deepest. And that's when you find out how strong you really are. I thought I was prepared. I had a plan, boundaries, Daniel by my side. But nothing could have truly prepared me for what came next. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I had just made tea, trying to savor a moment of calm before the baby arrived. Daniel and I were talking softly about nursery plans, about baby names, about how we wanted our home to feel peaceful and loving. And then, my phone rang. It was my grandmother. My heart sank. "Hey, Sophia," she said casually. "I just wanted to let you know, your mom is on her way." I froze. My calm, carefully constructed plan was suddenly being tested. My mind raced. Daniel noticed the change in my expression and asked quietly, "Is she coming here?" "Yes," I said, my voice measured. "She knows we're here. And she's still coming." I hung up, and a cold determination settled over me. I wasn't going to let fear control me. I wasn't going to be ambushed, not when I was so close to bringing another life into this world. Moments later, the doorbell rang. My daughter ran ahead, thinking it was a friend. I took a deep breath and followed, holding Daniel's hand tightly. And then there she was.
Linda, standing on the porch, smiling as if nothing had happened in the last 3 years.
But I saw through it. The smile was strategic, calculated, meant to disarm me. "Hi, sweetie," she said, her voice saccharine. "I just wanted to see my daughter and maybe patch things up. That's what she called it. I called it a setup." I looked at her calmly, holding my belly. "Mom, we're not doing visits like this right now," I said firmly. "I'm 9 months pregnant and I need to protect my family. You will not ambush me." Her smile faltered just slightly. "Sophia, we're family. Can't you forgive and forget? Life is too short for grudges." I swallowed, steadying my voice. 3 years, no contact. You prayed for Daniel's failure. You ignored my pregnancy announcements. And now you think showing up without warning is going to fix that? "No, Mom, not this time." Daniel stepped forward. "She's right. You are not coming in today. Respect our boundaries." I watched the color drain from my mother's face. That's when it hit me. She hadn't expected me to fight back. She had counted on fear, on guilt, on my compliance. But I was done complying. And then, the unexpected happened. Emma appeared behind her, looking nervous. "Sophia, maybe we can just talk?" I shook my head. "No, there's nothing to talk about. Not today, not like this. If you want a relationship with my children, it will be on my terms. My family, my rules, not your manipulation." The silence that followed was thick, heavy. They realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't a passive player. I wasn't going to be cornered, guilted, or ambushed. Finally, Linda muttered, I just wanted things to be like they were before." I took a step closer, calm but unwavering. "Before, Mom? Before I had to tiptoe around your moods? Before you ignored my needs? Before you tried to control who could be in my life? That life isn't coming back, not while I'm alive, and certainly not while I'm protecting my children." They turned and walked away, stunned. Emma glanced back, a flicker of guilt on her face. My mother didn't look back at all. Victory wasn't sweet, exactly. It was relief. Relief that I had taken control. Relief that no one could ambush me again. That night, Daniel and I sat together, holding our daughter close. "You were amazing," he whispered. "I've never seen anyone stand their ground like that." I smiled faintly, tired but resolute. It's not about being amazing. It's about survival, about showing my kids that boundaries are sacred, that no one, not even family, can take away your peace. Later, as I sat alone for a few quiet moments, I reflected on everything that had happened. The manipulation, the betrayal, the years of tiptoeing, it all led me to this moment. A moment of power, of clarity, of finally understanding my own worth. And that's when I realized, this story isn't just about family conflict. It's about growing stronger when life tries to ambush you, about protecting what truly matters, and about finding peace when chaos surrounds you. I knew there would be more challenges. There always are. But I also knew something vital. I would never let anyone compromise my peace again. Not my mother, not my sister, not anyone. That night, I whispered to my belly, to my unborn child, "We're going to be safe. We're going to be loved, and we will face this world together, stronger than anyone ever imagined." Because the truth is, sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who test your strength the most. And when you survive them, you find out how unbreakable you really are. The next few days were quiet, almost unreal. My mother and sister didn't call. They didn't show up. It was like they had finally realized I was no longer playing their game. And for the first time in years, I felt the calm settle into my home, into my mind. But calm didn't mean passive. I knew boundaries weren't one-time statements. They had to be enforced consistently. Daniel and I created a clear plan. Any contact from them would go through me first, and we would decide together what was safe for the children and for us. No more surprises, no more emotional ambushes. I also realized that I needed to process my own emotions. For years, I had carried anger, hurt, and disappointment silently. I had tried to protect everyone else, stay neutral, make peace, even when it cost me my sanity. And now I had to honor my own feelings. I started journaling, writing down everything I wanted to say to my mother, to Emma, to the years of unresolved conflict. I didn't send the letters. I didn't need to. The act of writing helped me release the weight I had been carrying. I began to understand that forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself. One afternoon, I took my daughter into the backyard and watched her play in the sunlight. Her laughter was pure, untouched by the past. That's when I made a promise. I would create a family environment where my children could thrive, free from manipulation, free from guilt, free from fear. I would be the protector, the safe harbor, the one who stands firm. Daniel and I also had serious conversations about the future. "Sophia," he said, holding my hand gently. "You've been carrying this weight alone for so long. I want to be a partner in every sense. No one gets to hurt you or our kids." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of relief. Not just relief, pride. Pride that I could finally draw lines and enforce them. That I could protect my family without fear or guilt. That I could say no, without second-guessing myself. I also began making small but meaningful changes in my home. I rearranged rooms, created safe spaces for the kids, and organized my personal areas so that I felt grounded and in control. Every detail mattered. Every action reinforced the message. We are protected here. No one can disturb our peace without consent. And as the days passed, my mother's attempts to reach out dwindled. Texts went unanswered. Calls were blocked. It wasn't cruelty, it was strategy. I was showing that boundaries are real, and crossing them has consequences. I even spoke to Emma one evening. She hesitated, unsure. "Sophia, I want things to be okay," she said quietly. I looked at her calmly. "Emma, things can be okay, but only if you respect the boundaries. Only if you understand that I will protect my family first. I can't let old grudges or manipulations control our lives." She didn't argue. She didn't push. She simply nodded. And I realized control doesn't come from punishment, it comes from clarity. When people understand the rules, they adjust or step away. Then came the night I went into labor. Everything changed. The last 9 months of anxiety, fear, and manipulation culminated in this moment. Daniel held my hand as we rushed to the hospital. My daughter snuggled in the car seat beside us. I was scared, of course, but not powerless. Not this time. As I gave birth to our new baby, a healthy, crying bundle of life, I felt a surge of triumph and relief. This was more than just bringing a child into the world. This was claiming my power, protecting my family, and surviving the storm. Later, as I held my newborn in my arms, I thought about the past, about my mother, about the manipulations, about the years I had spent trying to keep the peace, and I realized something vital. I don't need anyone's approval to protect my family. I don't need anyone's love to validate my strength. I am enough. That evening, Daniel and I sat quietly in the hospital room, watching our 2 children sleep. "You were incredible," he whispered. You handled everything with such strength. I've never seen anyone do it like you." I smiled faintly, tired but fulfilled. "It wasn't just me," I said. "It was about all of us, our family. And now we can finally breathe without fear of manipulation." In the following weeks, I started planning how we would continue to enforce our boundaries. I created clear schedules, explained gently to my daughter what respect and kindness mean, and made sure that our home remained a safe, peaceful space. And slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from manipulation, freedom from toxic control. I realized that the greatest gift I could give my children wasn't just love, but safety and clarity. Finally, I allowed myself a moment of gratitude. Not for my mother or sister, they had chosen their own paths, but for Daniel, for my children, and most importantly, for me. For standing up, for saying no, for refusing to be ambushed again. Because the truth is, life doesn't always give you peace. Sometimes it forces you into confrontations you're not ready for. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who test your strength the most. But when you survive, when you set boundaries and stand firm, you discover your true power. And that's the story I want to leave you with today. Protect yourself. Protect your family, and never ever let anyone manipulate you into surrendering your peace. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, life began to feel like ours again. The chaos, the fear, the emotional ambushes, all of it faded into the past because I refused to let it linger. I spent mornings sipping tea by the window, watching my children play in the sunlight. My newborn, so small and perfect, rested in my arms while my daughter giggled nearby. It was a life I had fought for, and finally, I could enjoy it without fear. Daniel and I had established new routines. Visits were scheduled, boundaries respected. Anyone trying to cross those lines would simply be denied access. No exceptions. And for the first time, I realized, this is what real peace feels like. I also started reflecting on myself, not just as a mother, not just as a wife, but as Sophia. The woman who had endured manipulation, betrayal, and emotional ambushes, and still stood tall. The woman who had protected her family while staying calm and strong, even when it felt impossible. I began to embrace self-care in a way I never had before. Long walks in the park, reading books late into the night, journaling my thoughts, and even taking time to plan my career and personal goals. I realized that self-respect isn't selfish. It's essential. And then, one quiet evening, Daniel looked at me with a soft smile. "Sophia, I see the strength in you every day. Not just in protecting the kids or handling your mother and sister. I see it in how you love, how you forgive, and how you keep going." I felt a lump in my throat. I nodded, tears welling up. But this time they were tears of relief, not pain. "I had to learn the hard way," I whispered. "But I think I finally understand. Love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. Love means protecting the people you care about, and yourself, at all costs." The weeks turned into months, and the distance I maintained from my mother and sister created space for healing. Not for them necessarily, but for me. I had learned that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing peace over conflict, choosing clarity over manipulation. I began to share my story with close friends, then through social media. I didn't want attention. I wanted to show other women, other mothers, other people trapped in toxic cycles, that it is possible to take control of your life, even when those closest to you try to undermine it. And slowly, the world began to feel lighter. The tension, the fear, the constant anticipation of the next emotional ambush. It was gone. I had taken back my power, and in doing so, I had given my children a safe, loving environment to grow up in. One evening, I stood on the balcony, holding my newborn against my chest, watching the sunset. I felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for the people who tried to control me, but for myself. For my strength, my clarity, my resilience. I realized something profound. Life doesn't always give you the peace you want. Sometimes it forces you into confrontations you never expected. But when you stand firm, set boundaries, and protect what matters, you not only survive, you thrive. And that's the lesson I want everyone watching this to take away. Your peace is sacred. Your boundaries are non-negotiable. Your strength is your power. Protect yourself, protect your loved ones, and never let anyone take that from you, no matter who they are. Because in the end, life isn't about surviving the storms others create. It's about rising through them stronger, calmer, and more unbreakable than ever. I am Sophia, a mother, a protector, and a survivor. And this is my story.